Well, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And, beyond Valentine's Day, this is a great February, and that everyone has an opportunity to check their paycheck. And for many, it means an increase in take-home pay. I was talking to a guy in Spokane Valley not too long ago, and he noticed he had $100 more in his paycheck, and he actually thought it was a glitch, but it wasn't a glitch. It was our promise kept to hardworking men and women in this country, many who feel like they're the forgotten man and woman. We're also hearing from small businesses that there's record number of small businesses that are expanding, that are growing, announcing, hiring more employees. And it reminded me, last summer I had the chance to visit Capital Candy Jar, and they just recently expanded right here, just a few blocks away. And they are known for their chocolate-covered Oreo cookies with the sprinkles. I was lucky to find probably some of the last that are on the shelf. But they also have hired some employees with disabilities and with Down syndrome in particular. And Gina, I got to meet her last summer. She had just started, and she was so excited to have a job. But I was really encouraged by the feedback from the other staff, the other employees at Capital Candy Jar. They were so excited to have Gina working there too. And they talked about her coming in every day, excited to be there, that she was a hard worker, she paid attention to all the details. And I was thinking, we want to give that opportunity to more people. And I'm especially excited about the provision within the tax bill that expanded the ABLE accounts. That means more people, especially those with disabilities, can go explore work. It's their opportunity to reach their full potential. And that's why tax reform is even more than dollars and cents. Tax reform is about ensuring everyone has an opportunity for a better life. We've also invited Congressman Rodney Davis to join us today. He's from the 13th District in Illinois. And in Illinois, Ameren, their local utility company, has announced lower rates. American Community Bank and Trust is giving $500 bonuses. Boeing, that has ties to Washington State and Illinois, has announced $100 million in investment and workforce development. And Rodney's going to share about visiting Walmart recently and talking to their employees. There's a lot of good news out there, and we're excited about what it means for people. So thank you, Rodney, for being here.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you for taking the chocolate-covered Oreos away on Ash Wednesday.
I'll give them to you.
No, please keep them away from me. But, I'm really honored to be here to talk about the impact of the tax reform bill in rural America, in my district in central and southwestern Illinois. As Kathy mentioned, several businesses that serve my district have been positively impacted by the legislation that this team behind me worked so hard to get across the finish line at the end of last year. On Friday, I went to Litchfield, Illinois. It's a town of about 7,000 people in my district because their largest employer just raised wages, gave a $1,000 bonus to their employees, and expanded maternity and parental benefits. Like many of our rural communities across the country, Walmart is a staple in Litchfield, Illinois, and is home to several hundred employees. Rob Hammer is the manager at that store. And I was excited to walk in and meet with Rob, and he had a group of folks, Lauren, Chester, Lisa, and Ryan, and they took me around the store and introduced me to a lot of employees. And I asked them all, what do these benefits mean to you? And it meant something different to each of them, but they all agreed that these benefits provided by their company meant a lot more than just crumbs. Rob was taking me around, and I saw a lot of 20 and 25-year employee pins on their name tags. Walmart is just not an employer in rural America. In many cases, again, it's the largest employer in many towns, but it's also a career to many of the people that I'm blessed to serve. And to a T, each and every one of those employees told me they have never seen the investment in them and the investment in the stores with capital improvements on the way than what they're seeing after the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. So it was an opportunity for me to see a few of the millions of hardworking middle-class Americans who have been left behind by Washington for far too long. And we're seeing and hearing directly from them that they're seeing their paychecks grow and lives improved because of tax reform. Thank you.
Well, first, let me wish a happy Valentine's Day to Jennifer back home. And I'll wish a happy Valentine's Day to all of you, too. Rodney, you can have another minute if you want to. He said Shannon's going to get a great Valentine's Day present, so he wanted to keep it a surprise. And everybody else is now queued up. It's a real exciting time for our economy when you see this tax cut bill having such a positive impact throughout our entire economy. And for workers, for people that have been working really hard for a long time, in many cases not seeing an increase in pay. Now they're finally getting bonuses and pay raises, and the list of companies continues to grow. We have a list on majoritywhip.gov of over 300 businesses who have already given bonuses and pay raises to their workers, and we keep that running tally. And the good news is it grows every week. CNBC just reported that this is the best time in 25 years for employees to get a pay raise or a bonus in their paychecks. We just saw the National Federation of Independent Businesses. They survey their members every year, and they said this is the highest percentage. Over 30% of their companies reported that they're looking to expand, to actually hire more workers, and it coincidentally happens to be the highest percentage of businesses looking to expand since 1986. And of course, 1986 is the last time that we had a major reform and overhaul of our tax code. So cutting taxes is working for small businesses, and more importantly, it's working for hard-working taxpayers. And as people see more money in their paychecks this month and every month, they're going to continue to benefit from the work that we did here in Congress, working with President Trump to cut taxes for hard-working families. Something that we're working hard on this week and for the last few months is an immigration reform in trying to finally address the problems with our broken immigration system. It starts with securing the border, and the Goodlatte-McCall bill is a bill that we're going to be whipping today, asking our members to support this bill that addresses those pressing issues. It puts money in place to build the wall. It makes sure that we have real both border security and interior security. And again, both Chairman Goodlatte and McCall worked very hard with a cross-section of our members to put together a bill that confronts those issues. It ends chain migration, ends this lottery system that everybody agrees makes no sense. Why should you be picking names out of a hat instead of having a merit-based system that actually works for our country much better than the current broken system? And then finally, it confronts the DACA issue. This is an issue that Barack Obama put on the doorsteps of America when he created DACA, a program that really had no path for anybody. It just said, it encouraged a lot of people to come to our country and said, somebody else is going to have to deal with it. Well, we're finally dealing with it. President Trump laid out the pillars of what he wants to see in a bill that can get to his desk that he can sign. And the Goodlatte-McCall bill addresses all of those issues in a way where if we get this bill passed through the House and if it ultimately gets to the president's desk, he would sign that bill. And I think it's important to give people certainty and to finally address the problems that have been existing in our broken immigration system for a long time. We finally confront that, and the Goodlatte-McCall bill is the bill that we're moving. And if you look at where we start today, we are finally at least working on a way to come together to address this problem.
Wish you all a happy Valentine's Day, and especially to my wife, Judy. As everybody's getting different presents for Valentine's Day, there is an opportunity for all Americans to receive a present. If you check your check, after the tax cut went through, people are going to find in their paychecks today that they get to keep more money. This weekend, my brother and I, Sunday night, we were watching the Olympics, and he was talking about his last week at work. He's an electrician, works in a prison. And he said all the employees came in saying, hey, we got a pay raise. But they looked to see that, yes, they had more money in their check, but it wasn't a pay raise. It was an increase because of the tax cut. And what we're finding across this country, just as Rodney talked about at Walmart, not only are they getting more money in their check, but for those more than 1 million employees at Walmart, they have a longer maternity leave now as well. Just as Whip Scalise talked about those hundreds of businesses that continue to give more bonuses. If you look at what MetLife recently did, Not only did they increase their minimum wage like so many others, they created a $10 million skills development fund and established a minimum group life insurance benefit and enhanced their 401k. And when you look at what Bloomberg, yesterday I was at the 10,000 small businesses, Bloomberg just came out with their small business owners, what they're looking at and thinking of in the future. And this is the strongest reading in the 45-year history of the survey. This is the beginning of the American comeback, and we have more work to do. But when we see what's happening across the country, this is much different than what the leader on the other side, Nancy Pelosi, said. This is not Armageddon, and these are not crumbs. These are abilities for families to change their way of life and improve for the next generation as well. We will continue to work as we talked at the small business. What we see on the floor this week, you got Patrick McHenry protecting consumers' access to credit, one of the big challenges for small businesses and others as they go forward. We will continue to work on areas that we can enhance job creation in America, and just as Whip Scalise talked about, we need to solve the DACA issue. And it's something that we've been working on quite diligently. It's something I've been working in my office with the other leaders from the Senate and the House and the White House. And I'm hopeful at the end of the day we will find a solution and a compromise that all sides could come to an agreement to make this country stronger, safer, and not have to deal with this problem again, because that would be disingenuous for a future generation.
Well, I did it privately this morning, but I want to do it publicly right now. I want to wish Jana Happy Valentine's Day. First of all, as you just heard from the other leaders, you know, tax reform is something that we fought for to help all those Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck, who are struggling to make ends meet. And we're really pleased to see the success. Right before Christmas, when this thing became law, workers started to get word that they're going to get a bonus. They started to get word that maybe they're going to get a raise for the first time in many years. They started to get word that maybe their benefits were going to improve, or maybe a bigger 401k match. In less than 8 weeks, we have tracked nearly 350 companies that have handed out bonuses as a result of tax reform. Every day we hear more about this, and we know that there are plenty of other small businesses who are doing the same, that are just doing it under the radar, that aren't on CNBC or on television. This adds up to a lot of good news that millions of people can bring home to their families. The list keeps growing by the day, and we're very excited about that, because this is just only the beginning. Thanks to lower taxes, thanks to tax reform, these lower rates are kicking in. So by the end of this month, 90% of American workers, by the end of this month, 90% of American workers will see bigger paychecks as a result of tax reform. That is very good news for workers. It's very good news for our economy. So take-home pay is going up. People are keeping more of what they earn in the first place. This momentum is generating more confidence in our economy. According to a new survey, a record number of small business owners say that now is a good time to expand. This is going to drive more jobs. This is going to drive higher wages, better take-home pay, faster economic growth. Look, I know our Democratic colleagues want to dismiss all of this good news. It's kind of interesting to watch them try to do this. But tax reform is working. It is delivering bigger paychecks for hardworking families. It's helping people improve their lives. Remember, this is why we're here. The reason we ask our constituents to send us here to serve them is to improve their lives. And we now know without a shred of doubt, so much evidence is in, tax reform is working. So those families who are struggling, those families who are pessimistic, those families who are really worried about the next pay period, they're seeing relief. The economy is regaining its confidence. We're seeing more jobs and better paychecks. That's a good thing. That's why we did it. That's why we're excited about seeing tax reform work. Does anyone have any questions? One.
Mr. Speaker, Chairman Gowdy today announced that he's opened up an investigation into the White House handling of the Rob Porter situation. Did he inform you first about that investigation, and is that something that you saw?
He did inform us, and that is his job as the Government Oversight Reform Chairman. They clearly have to have work to do to fix their vetting system. I don't know exactly how they'll do that. I'll leave that to them, but Chairman Gowdy is doing his proper job in oversight. And yes, he did give us a heads up. Well, I'll leave that to them. Obviously, we're the House. I can't answer that question. Casey.
Mr. Speaker, the President has said that he wishes Rob Porter well. He has not said anything about the ex-wives that say that Rob Porter abused them. Do you think that the White House should publicly condemn domestic violence?
Absolutely. Look, I think that I can't speak for what he said because I don't even know the answer to that, what he did.
Should the
But
President say
clearly, clearly we should, come on. Clearly, we should all be condemning domestic violence. And if a person who commits domestic violence gets in the government, then there's a breakdown in the system. There's a breakdown in the vetting system, and that breakdown needs to be addressed. Baraboo. Sorry, somebody spoke out, not calling on you. Baraboo.
For the majority leader, understand that you've had some conversations with the president recently. Wondering if you can confirm that you've talked to him about explored the opportunity for chief of staff. Are you interested in that position at all?
Sorry, I called on him.
You called on him just because of the jacket.
It's the jacket, man.
Okay, first of all, I have not spoken to the president about anything about a job, and I never have. And there is no job opening. And I congratulate you on your jacket.
Last question. Mr. Speaker, if the Goodlatte bill does not whip favorably, will you still bring up an immigration bill?
We're not going to do ifs, ands, or buts. I didn't mean to cut you off. We've got to solve this problem. What we've been saying all along is we have a problem that needs solving. We want to solve DACA, but we also want to solve DACA in a comprehensive way such that we don't have a DACA problem in 5 years, right? I mean, what's the point of just fixing part of it and then having the same problem 5, 10 years down the road? That is why we're talking about interior enforcement. That's why we're talking about border security. So we think that the president did a very good job of putting a very sincere offer on the table. And that sincere offer that he put on the table should be the framework through which we come together to find a solution. We want to find a solution. Our hope that our Democratic colleagues are more interested in finding a solution than preserving an issue for campaigns. We're there for a solution. We're not trying to preserve an issue. And what we always want to do in the House is have a House Republican position so which we can start from for negotiations. But at the end of the day, we want to have a solution. We'll see what the Senate does this week. Frankly, I have no idea what the Senate's going to produce this week. And we'll also have the president engaged to make sure that we have something that if it lands on his desk, he's going to sign it, and that's very important to us. Look, we think this deadline's an important deadline. Obviously, with the court ruling, it's not as important as it was before, given the court rulings. But I think this place works better with deadlines, and we want to operate on deadlines. We clearly need to address this issue in March. I'll just leave it at that.